Good evening, everyone. This is Jeff with Astroscoop Deep Dive Astrology Coaching. It is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I decided to, instead of using the other browser, I decided to just do directly on YouTube this evening because I've been having some technical difficulties for the last 2 or 3 weeks on the other piece. So I decided to just stay with YouTube for tonight. So it is 8 p.m. Eastern Time, and I didn't get a chance. I've been so busy today, I didn't get a chance to advertise the stream. So I can see that no one's in here right now, but hopefully people will come in a little bit. We'll wait a few minutes. But how's everyone doing? How's everyone feeling? This is Western Astrology. If you're new to my live stream or the channel, I do all kinds of Western astrology videos about the planets and signs of the zodiac. And on the live streams here, these are weekly here on YouTube at Astroscoop 3801. It's usually on Fridays or Saturday nights between 8 and 9, sometimes 8:30, and always here on YouTube on, again, Fridays or Saturdays. You can also follow me on X, which is Astro_Scoop, and I'm on Instagram, Astroscoop7. So I do a lot of reels on Instagram, and I talk about the long and short form pieces of my videos and live streams in the reels and my posts. So please follow me. And before we get into it, also, you can, some people have asked how they can support the channel. You can donate to me, Astroscoop, via Venmo, and it's at Astroscoop. It's just at capital A Astro, capital S Scoop. So if you want to donate to my channel, any amount is appreciated. It's about the thought, not about the amount. And I've been doing the live stream for a while now, and any donation would help. And it's really more so, to me, it's more so for the thought and to propel good energy moving forward. So happy summer. Happy summer here on the East Coast. Summer actually is in almost 3 hours. So technically it's not actually summer yet here on the East Coast. We're still in the very last hairs and last degree of Gemini. So we're still in Gemini. Today is June 20th, 2025, in the very, very last degree of Gemini and last minute of Gemini in the zodiac cycle of 30 degrees. And then tonight is happy summer solstice. I'm looking to the west over here, and it is the sunset has not begun here. Now it's the longest weekend of light, at least in this hemisphere. And the opposite is true in the other part of the world, where it's the shortest day and longest night. So for those of you on the other end of the world starting winter, I wish you a good winter. I hope it's not a bad winter. Hope it's not too cold. But it's so nice that it's finally summer here, and we're getting a heat wave next week here on the East Coast. So it's going from chilly spring to a little warm. It's been normal warm, kind of normal summerish warm. Now we're going into heat wave. So buckle up, here it comes. So I'm just waiting a couple minutes, just stalling here a little bit, see if anyone else pops in. Last week, I talked about the Gemini Cancer cusp, so please check that out. And I also have a cusp video from a few weeks ago, which talks about the Aries Taurus and Taurus Gemini cusps as well, because I get a lot of people asking for me to do more cusp material, and I get a lot of comments about my cusp videos. So I will start to do more of those as well as I go into the summer and fall here in 2025. So today is a very, very powerful day with the summer solstice. And we're going to look at, I'm going to talk about the summer solstice cosmic chart. Tonight I'm going to talk about the new moon in Cancer chart, which is next Wednesday, the 25th of June, in the early morning hours. And of course, we'll talk about Cancer and what that means for the season and celebrities and all that good stuff. But most importantly, happy summer solstice, Cancer Moonchild, June 20th, 2025. So every season that commences is related to one of the four cardinal signs: Aries, Cancer, Libra, and Capricorn. And I always talk about this. The cardinal signs are all about push, and they're about beginnings and commencement and about drive. So when you think about the strength and fertility that Mother Nature has today on the summer solstice, and all of the greenery, the bugs, the creatures, the animals, everything that is in full swing and full bloom. And it has been, I'd say, for about a good solid 2-3 weeks now. But now that we're in Cancer, we get away from the more youthful energy of Gemini, and then we get away from that combination of the cusp of magic, which we're on today still. Today we are still on a Gemini Cancer cusp until next Wednesday or Tuesday. But the Gemini Cancer cusp I talked about is a magical cusp because it occurs on the solstice. So the solstice energy is this combination of air and water. And then, of course, we're going into true Cancer. So I'll talk about true Cancer tonight, and then we will go on with the subsequent Cancer decans, Cancer 2 next week, Cancer 3. But here's another thing, too. If you sign in to your Google account or YouTube account, you have to sign in. Please find my channel, Astroscoop 3801. Click subscribe, and then click all or personalized. But you have to click all or personalized so you get notified. If you want all the notifications, click all. If you want some, but not all, depending on what you watch on my channel, YouTube will decide what the algorithm suggests. You can do personalized. So that's it. Simple. But you do have to sign into your YouTube or Google account. So I've seen a couple of people pop in and out. So I'm not sure if there's any technical difficulties. Let me just check my other browser here. I'm going to X out of that. I'm not going to try that. I'm not going to try that software tonight. Been having too many gremlins messing with that software lately, so I have to troubleshoot that. So the summer solstice, June 20th, 2025. Summer solstice tonight means we go into Cancer. And as we'll talk about, there's a lot of Cancer energy in the cosmic sky and in the cosmic chart. And the summer energy is amazing. It truly is. Now, even if you're in a part of the world where you're in summer, but it doesn't feel like summer because it's chillier or it's darker or you get a lot of rain or you have strong winds that are cold or chilly, the wind chill, it may feel different if you're not having that 75, 80, 85 degree dry heat like the majority of the coast is here. But summer is it's a very strong, powerful energy, and it's different than spring. 3 months ago, we started the zodiac all over again with Aries. And we went Aries to Taurus to Gemini, now we're in Cancer. So it's a whole cycle. It's one quadrant of the zodiac cycle. And the Cancer person born between June 25th and July 2nd, which is Cancer 1 Decan. These are folks that would be approximately, probably in their 20s. It could equate to someone in their 20s. And that's based on the cosmic zodiac cycle of approximately 84 years with 12 signs and cycles. So it's a more mature version than the Cancer Gemini cusp than we had this past week when we go into pure Cancer. Now, Cancer, I watched my live stream from last year, and I watched my last Cancer video, which was a long time ago. And I will try not to repeat myself too much, although there are some themes that are always very, very present for Cancer. But the Cancer sign, the Cancer Moonchild sign, is probably the #1 sign in the zodiac that, regardless if you're a man or a woman born in this week under this water sign, you will have, and most likely have it naturally, you will have a natural feminine, a natural affinity for being feminine. And what I mean by feminine is I don't mean literally feminine, but I mean more terms of yin, introversion, reserve, because of the water sign. Now, Cancers can be very complex in this decan. So again, this is June 25th to July 2nd, Decan 1. These are doubly ruled Cancer people. They're ruled by the moon, and their co-ruler is the moon. So in ancient civilizations, and I know I mentioned this last year, they used symbols like the crab and the lotus, spiritual symbols, intuitive symbols, to describe and respect the sea creatures that are under the rulership of the moon and under the ebb and flow of the moon. And Cancer, relating to the crab and the lotus, is very much a yin energy, an inner energy. But the difference with Cancer, this is how Cancer really differs from Scorpio and Pisces, its other two fellow water signs. Cancer is cardinal. So Cancer uses that cardinality in a very tenacious way. And they do it in a slow but steady way. But they don't necessarily walk to you directly. They sidestep. The crab sidesteps. It's indirect. Although Cancer, early Cancer energy, is very keen on expressing their emotions, which they can do in quite a direct way, and sometimes quite an aggressive fashion. They can do that. But Cancers are very complex, and that's how they differ strongly from their fellow water signs, Cancer, Scorpio and Pisces, is that they are both yin, introverted, reserved to a point, but there's something very expressive emotionally about the Cancer person. And Cancer people born this decan, the true Cancer person, double moon, have to be careful. You have to be careful of mirroring other people's energy or mirroring other people's emotions. Cancer people, and this also is true for Cancer moon people, if you're a Cancer moon, and Cancer rising especially. Sun, moon, or rising in Cancer. And to some extent, maybe Venus in Cancer or Mars in Cancer. But Cancer people born during the moon period have an ability to tune into people very well. But it also can be to their detriment because they are mirroring other people's energy and emotions very easily. So like Pisces, Cancer people need good solid boundaries with people, and most particularly emotionally. Cancer people really, really need that, because the line in the sand of where a Cancer person ends and you begin, or where they begin and you end, at least emotionally, is tough for them. And to some extent, this is similar to Pisces. But unlike Pisces, Pisces is okay to drift off to another stream or another land if they feel they're unappreciated or unloved, or Pisces is not feeling the vibe. Pisces is so much about just vibration. So Pisces isn't feeling the vibe. They can very easily just drift and take off, sometimes with no warning. But Cancer is tenacious. So Cancer is not going to give up easily if they want your attention, your thoughts, your appreciation. That's not going to be something that they're going to drop. They're not going to drop the ball easily on that, for the most part. And that goes for all Cancer periods, all decans, but especially true for June 25th to July 2nd, because it's all moon energy. Now, I know I kind of talked about this similar theme last year, but the moon is changeable, as we know, and the moon rules the tides. And in a birth chart, the moon, Cancer rules the breasts, the stomach, to some extent digestion. So in the natal chart, the Cancer person, depending on what aspects they have to their sun in Cancer, hopefully it's good aspects, but if they have rough aspects that create stress, or they have rough aspects to their moon to create a lot of unnecessary, sometimes emotional stress, that's very, very tough for Cancer people to deal with. Also, like I said, Cancer moons, and very much for Cancer risings. Now, you'll hear a lot of astrologers when they talk about the ascendant, when they talk the ascendant on this side of the wheel, on the left side, it's the ascendant or rising sign. You'll hear a lot of astrologers on social media talk about how it is very important. It's your mask to the world, it's your mission to the world, but it is not who you are. Who you are is your sun and moon. However, I like to think, as an astrologer and as someone who has known a lot of Cancer rising people through my family, friends, work, I don't know, I've just known an unusually a lot, especially a lot of Cancer rising men, but women too, and all kinds of different sun signs, all different moon signs, all different ages. And the Cancer rising is different to me than some of the other rising signs, because the moon is so strongly sensitive that the Cancer rising person can almost act more like a Cancer than the sun in Cancer person, if that makes any sense. So let's say you could be a Taurus, but you could have a strong Cancer rising. If you had a Cancer rising at early, a 5, 6, 7, 8 degree Cancer rising early on, it would be raw moon energy. And then you'd have to look at what your moon is in, because that's very important. But Cancer moon people take on a very strong, emotional, tenacious bent when it's Cancer's rising, no matter what the person's sun and moon is in. So, of course, we're talking about the sun in Cancer here, born this week. But Cancer rising people, I'm mentioning you because there's a lot going on in the cosmic sky that will apply to you as well. And this goes for even if you have a Cancer stellium, but it's not the sun. You might have Moon, Venus, and Mars in Cancer. Or you might have Moon and Venus, and it might be conjunct your Cancer rising ascendant. So darn sensitive. And sensitive in every sense of the word. Cancer is sensitive in some ways more than Scorpio and Pisces. In some ways, Cancer has its own special breed of sensitivity or touchiness. Cancer is a touchy-feely kind of sign, with the crab and the lotus. I see a couple of people have come in and out. Welcome. If you're just hanging out in the reef in the background, thank you. I appreciate it. We're talking about Cancer. Happy summer for most people. June 20th, 2025, summer solstice actually starts in 2.5 hours. So we're in the last degree of Gemini, but we're almost celebrating happy Cancer Moonchild summer. Wow. I remember saying when it was happy summer last year, for some reason, it doesn't feel like a year ago. It's amazing. As I get older, it's amazing how fast the feeling, no pun intended, the feeling of time is. As you get older, it absolutely, the perception and your feeling is different. And I remember relatives telling me that when I was in college, and I didn't believe it, but I definitely see it and feel it now. It's amazing. So think about the intentions today. If you're a Cancer person, now we all have Cancer in our chart somewhere. So even if you don't have a Cancer planet or you don't have a Cancer rising, you could have a Cancer on the 10th house, which is your career and public, and you would have Cancer somewhere else on one of the other 11 house cusps. But wherever Cancer is where you're going to show a little emotional sensitivity that is with a unique kind of antenna that you'll guard. You'll guard your privacy. And the interesting thing about early Cancer is like there's this guarded nature with Cancers with the shell, but yet because they're cardinal, they can be assertive and aggressive in their own way. So Cancer's not assertive and aggressive like an Aries would be. And of course, that also goes for Libra and Capricorn. The cardinal energy knows how to be assertive. The cardinal energy knows how to be aggressive and go after what it wants. But with Cancer, it's not always, you don't always see it on the surface, but there's this very, very strong current that's moving Cancer indirectly, sidestepping towards their goals so that they can grab their pinchers on it, whatever it is they want. So, you hear the word tenacious, tenacity. I hear that so many times from astrologers, but it's so true. That is, those themes really sum up the early moon and double moon energy of Cancer people born right after the summer solstice into the first decan of Cancer in the first week of summer. So it's just amazing to me. And I've known many Cancer men, and like I said, Cancer rising men, and they sometimes fight their intuition, but they have it. And Cancers, over here, Cancers are empathic, especially early Cancer energy. And of course, all the water signs are to some extent. But Cancer has a certain brand of empathic communication. This is very much shown with animals. I've seen Cancer women born this week particularly have an amazing relationship with animals, and not just pets, not just cats or dogs, but horses, cows, or even rodents, that sort of thing. I know one woman born this week who is an animal. She's like an animal wrangler trainer. So she does shows with animals and educates people about animals, and does all sorts of things. So she's very savvy and knows a lot about the environment and animals and nature. But she's well educated, but she has that empathic kind of bond with them. So empathic and well-disposed, for the most part, well-disposed. That's early Cancer energy. And Cancer is not always aware of some of the signals that they're sending out to other people. And this is especially important if the Cancer person is feeling irritable or defensive. The Cancer may not show it readily and may not be able to be direct enough about it in a constructive way, to deal with it, and it may come off as passive aggressive. So Cancer ones can absolutely have to be very careful about being passive aggressive. I know a man in his 60s who's an ex-Marine who's born his birthday's next week, and he was telling me about his birthday coming up, and I said, "You're an early Cancer," and he said, "Yeah, I'm a moon child." I said, "Yep." And I asked him, "What was it like being in the Marines, being in the service? Are you a sensitive person?" Because most Cancer people are sensitive. And he said, "Yeah, I am, but I'm tough. I have a tough shell." So of course, some of that he learned, and he trained himself to be like that. But he's a very chatty, this particular man I'm thinking of, very, very chatty man. Even though he's very private and guarded, he's very chatty. That's the difference too, is this chattiness with Cancer people. You won't always get that with Scorpio or Pisces. But with Cancer, they're never going to go too long without expressing something to you or telling something to you. And Cancer rising people, my gosh, you guys and gals, Cancer rising people are, I think, are almost more tenacious than the Sun in Cancer, because it rules your chart. So of course, a lot of it depends on what your moon sign is in. I know 2 Cancer rising sign men that have their moon in Aquarius. Carolyn says, "Love the lights." Oh, thank you. Yeah, these are new. My daughter helped me buy these, so they're changing color. I don't know how they look on screen, but they're all just RGB and they're just changing color, so it's kind of cool. But these men are very interesting, where they're kind of like tough and gruff on the outside, but underneath you can tell that they have some heart and they want to express that, but they don't always know how to. They don't always know how to express that in a healthy way and to balance that. Now, I mentioned at the very beginning how early Cancer energy, early double moon Cancer energy is all about feminine. That doesn't mean Cancer people can't be masculine, because Cancer is a very strong sign. You know, I said this last year and I'll say it again. Don't underestimate Cancer planets. Cancer planets they have grit. They definitely have grit. Now, Cancer planets can go either way. They can have grit and be tenacious, but they can also get very discouraged and give up, and they need to retreat into their cave, not just the men, women also. And they may need to withdraw or retreat from life for weeks, months, or even years to ruminate on their hurt feelings and things like that. So it's tough for early moon children here to always, I think the real world is tough for them, because it's not always, the world can be kind of cold and tough and unfeeling. And as tough as they can be sometimes, we know underneath it that the Cancer is kind of like more like jelly, and it has a soft belly underneath that hard shell. And that's especially true for Cancer rising people. Cancer rising people, you can come off as very sympathetic and thoughtful and chatty, a good sense of humor, or you could be kind of guarded and have be a little more crusty, and you have withdrawn your energy because of certain past hurts. So it's very important for Cancer people to do inner work, however that is, meditation, therapy, anything that gets the circulation going, and anything that can calm the stomach. Because when we all get stressed, it all affects our gut and our stomach, and affects digestion as well. So it's important for early Cancer people to do that. Now, because Cancer is so emotionally kind of intense, because they have their own brand of sensitivity, and I keep saying brand because this is what really differentiates Cancer from Scorpio and Pisces planets. You know, all the water signs have similar watery energy that can be a very strong pro or a kind of a dark con. You know, water signs can have dark energy if not dealt with. And that's very much true for Cancer energy. And Cancer energy, you know, when you look at the charts of criminals and serial killers, a lot of charts show raw Cancer energy where the person was somewhat emotionally impulsive, so committed some kind of crime or violence based on feeling neglected, slighted, betrayed, hurt. So some kind of very strong, poignant emotion that they didn't know how to grapple with and they couldn't balance, and they retaliated. So I know that could almost sound like Scorpio, but with Scorpio, it cuts in a different way. But Cancer's cardinal, so Cancer's always going to move, and Cancer can be a counterpuncher to someone that pushes them, you know, sort of thing. So Cancers need a specialty. They need a specialty because they combine this. They're very Cancers can be very tech savvy, not just with computers, but they can have a good technical working knowledge of whatever it is that they're into or what they studied, and they are good researchers. They do their homework, and again, they have a very good retentive memory. Cancer people, Cancer moons, even Cancer Mercuries have really, really excellent retentive memories. I've never met a Cancer person that didn't have a great memory. And they need a specialty because they remember everything. They remember all the good, the bad, and I don't know how much of the neutral they remember, but things that really stick out to them as really highs or lows tend to stay with Cancer people. But they need that specialty because they have that savvy, that kind of work savvy, or they could be good salespeople because they intuitively kind of know what people want. They can make good salespeople or good, public relations, other kind of thing, service. And they also have that uncanny empathic ability to kind of tune into you, which is more on an emotional level or an energetic level. So if Cancer people can balance those, they can find a specialty that really uses kind of the practical and the feelings, and it will use their feelings and have an avenue for their aggression. Now, I don't know how many of you see Cancer as an aggressive sign. It isn't necessarily aggressive straight on when you think of the symbols of like the lotus, the crab, and you think of the moon. Although the moon can be, the emotions can be turbulent, but Cancer being the very first water sign in the zodiac, and of course it starts the summer solstice tonight. It's cardinal. It's very, very, very powerful when you think of how it relates to the summer solstice and the earth. When you think of that, and it is goddess energy too. You know, all the ancient civilizations, they all worshipped the moon and this kind of symbology of the crab with goddess, goddess energy. And does that mean a Cancer woman isn't in touch with her masculine sign? Not necessarily, but the feminine or yin sign is very, very much pronounced in the men and women. But you really have to look at the moon. I always keep saying this, but you have to look at the moon sign. For Cancer people, more than any other sign in the zodiac, you got to look at the sun-moon combo to figure out how they tick, and then look at that with the ascendant. Now, if let's say a Sun in Cancer person has the moon in air. I knew a guy who was a musician in the 90s. He was a Cancer Aquarius moon. I remember he was a guitarist, and I met him a couple times through a friend. He had that water sign creativity for music, but he was very good with computers, and he was very good with the technology of creating music, which was very detached. The way he did it was very detached. So he had the Cancer sun ruled by the moon in Aquarius. So he was much more of a detached Cancer than if he had the sun in Cancer and moon in Aries or something like that, or the sun in Cancer and moon in Virgo. So you really have to take those into account and combine them. It's really about just combining them and getting a sense of how the sun and moon work together. But for Cancer people, the moon is so important. And again, it helps fuel and direct those strong feelings and at times aggression. Now, I think Cancer people that are aggressive are coming at it from a defensive. In other words, they're coming off the gate as aggressive because they're defensive. Whereas another sign might not be as defensive, might be a little more open, or might kind of feel the situation out before adopting a defensive attitude. So that's something that Cancer planets have to be wary of, is being temperamental and adopting a defensive stance, like the crab with that hard shell. Now, sometimes that's a good thing. Cancers take good care of us. When they're positive, Cancers can be incredibly loving, sympathetic, protective. Those are all good qualities for good parents and grandparents and aunts and uncles and teachers. Those positive traits of the moon and being a water sign. But those feelings, and the lesson really is to let's decrease, let's get the arrow down on the armor. So I've noticed this very much with Mars Cancer people, Cancer Mars people, absolutely, and Cancer rising people mostly, even more than Sun or Moon in Cancer. The Cancer Mars would make sense because it's not well placed. The feminine yin sign of Cancer, she doesn't like being in the hot, dry room or placement of Mars. Mars is Scorpio and Aries. So Cancer Mars doesn't always know how to be aggressive or assertive in a healthy, constructive, productive way. So they can be temperamental and can take things out on the side. So Mars in Cancer is very tenacious and can be quite temperamental. And that can also play out for the Cancer rising person. But again, you really have to look. The moon is so important for the Cancer rising person. The moon's placement of the house, because then the person would be a moon rule person in whatever house and aspects. So reduce the armor, or at least perceived armor or defensiveness. I think Cancers can get a lot more from people and can work things out a little bit if they could reduce the fear, the F word. The F word is fear. We all have fears. Some people have more fears than others, but Cancer energy in particular can be very much, not so much addicted to fear, but it can be a coping mechanism where they may fear the worst. And it's a lot of it may be based on their past and what happened there. But they're very, very perceptive. They're perceptive about how you're viewing them, and they're perceptive about your emotions and feelings as well. So that's a real plus that early Cancer people have, is that kind of water sign perceptiveness. And any of you that have major water signs in your family, or if you are married to one, a spouse, or you have a child, there's nothing like the positive, beautiful water sign energy in a chart when it's tuned in properly, when the frequency is good. When the water signs go off the reservation and they're irrational, that's a whole nother story, right? But lessen the armor, increase that perceptiveness so that they can kind of tell like how you're viewing them, and then it might be okay to open up a little bit and to test the waters with less fear, whether that's a friendship or a new relationship or whatever, even like a new job or something. So once they're comfortable, these kind of Cancer people can be, they'll nudge you and they'll schmooze with you and they'll be all like that once they're comfortable. But there's a lot you have to put up with, and it's not all bad. I'm just saying there's just a lot of emotions and feelings there from early Cancer energy that you have to sift through with the Cancer person or the major Cancer person to get some of those goods. Now, of course, in 6 months, we'll be talking about Capricorn 1. 6 months will be the beginning of winter. Can't believe I remembered saying in 6 months we'll be talking about summer, and here we are. So the opposite is Capricorn 1, which is all Saturn. And Capricorn 1 has a little bit more of a rulership mentality. So the Cancer Capricorn polarity is yin cardinal. They're yin signs, water and earth, and they're cardinal. So even though they're yin and reserved, because they're cardinal, they're going to move and they're going to push more so than like Taurus and Scorpio or Virgo and Pisces, which are also yin signs. But that Capricorn 1 and Cancer together is kind of like tense perfection. There's a lot of high ideals there for both to perform well. And I mentioned earlier how Cancers can be savvy, tech savvy, and Cancers can be actually quite practical as well. They can run a business well, run a family well. They can make a good manager at work or supervisor. That Cancers can really surprise you because of that cardinality behind the water sign, behind the shell. So 6 months Capricorn. So it would be good for Cancer to kind of incorporate that. And Capricorn is not as concerned with what others feel about them. Capricorn is not as concerned about the feelings. It's harder for Capricorn to tap into that. So that's why Cancer and Capricorn are opposite. So that balance right there would be good for Cancer people. All right, let me take a look at, let's see. All right, hold on one second. All right, I'm looking at the summer solstice chart. So this is really, really awesome for Cancer people in particular. But if you have a Cancer planet or Cancer rising, this also applies to you. Now, the sun tonight is at 0 of Cancer at 10:42. Jupiter is now at 2 of Cancer. In a few days, the sun will conjunct Jupiter. That's wonderful. Now, of course, this happens at different times of the year, and it happens on different years depending on when Jupiter is in a particular sign. But for the next week, you could consider the sun going into Cancer, which is early moon energy, conjuncting Jupiter in Cancer, expanding all of the early moon energy, conjuncting Jupiter in Cancer, expanding all of our emotions and hopefully our warm feelings about friends and family, with July 4th coming up. So that's the big positive, is kind of repairing. It's going to expand your ability to repair and correct your relations, your closest relations with family and friends, because that's what Cancer is all about. That's what makes Cancer really thrive. Yes, Cancer likes other things. Cancer can be ambitious to some extent, but family, the hearth, roots, nothing more important than that connection for Cancer planets, and to a large extent Cancer rising people as well, depending on the moon sign. So Sun Jupiter conjunction coming, that's at 2. Now Mercury is moving fast, it's at 21 of Cancer. So obviously that doesn't conjunct the Sun or Jupiter. It's going to move quickly, and then that will go into Leo. But Mercury in Cancer is direct. It's not retrograde. And having all that Cancer energy in the coming week, depending on if you know where your Cancer is in your chart, it's going to fire up those feelings and emotions. And it could fire up feeling hyper vigilant or sensitive, hypersensitive about certain things, depending on where it lands in your chart. But if you're a Cancer rising person, a lot of it depends on the degree. But Jupiter will most likely be transiting either in your 12th house, behind the scenes of endings, and it's hidden behind the scenes. That doesn't mean it's not doing anything. Could it be increasing your psychic abilities? It could be increasing you as an empath, even if you don't believe in it. Some of this stuff is just energy. You don't even have to really believe. You don't have to have the belief system of one particular thing. You could just be open to it and say, I don't really believe in this. This is kind of, nonsense to me, but I'll see what happens. Cancer people, you just should be open to, especially with the Sun and Jupiter. The Cancer rising people, either the 12th or first house transit, which is really big. Now, a Capricorn rising person, Cancer would be on the flip. It would be on your 7th house of marriage and one-on-one relationships. So that could expand your close relationships and or the kind of local, your local relationships and your one-on-ones, most likely romantic or love-oriented. But with all that moon energy, with all that Cancer energy in the coming week, it's all ruled by whatever moon sign we're in, right? So the moon is in Aries right now, but in 2 hours, it goes into Taurus, which is really nice. This is a wonderful chart, by the way. If a baby is born tonight, let's say there's a baby born tonight in a New York hospital between 11 and 12, let's say, he or she would have the Sun, Jupiter, Mercury in Cancer, have the moon in Taurus, have Venus in Taurus, really nice placement, and then that last degree of Uranus at 29 of Taurus. So very interesting chart. And then he or she would have Aquarius rising with Pluto right there. But all that Cancer energy, it's a great time for Cancer people to be more open, to try to reduce your armor and reduce your defensiveness. Positive Cancer energy has a lot of wonderful qualities to give. But in my personal opinion, I find it hard to get close to people. I don't see it as an easy thing to get close to people that have major Cancer. And that can apply to all the 3 water signs. Anyone that has major water, because water is mysterious. And for anyone that has major water planets, Sun, Moon, Venus, Mars, rising, you'll know that your water sign planet likes privacy, likes to hide sometimes, likes to be on the down low or low key. There's nothing wrong with that. But there's something particularly hard to penetrate sometimes about Cancer, about the shell. And that could also mean that they don't particularly feel safe with me, or they don't feel safe with a particular energy. So that at that time that you're trying to connect with them, whatever time it may be, it's not the right time, or they're not vibing with the energy. They may want to, but they can't do it. So it will be good for all Cancer people, especially those Cancer rising people, to try to be a little more open, not be as armored. And again, you're looking at the moon. So if you're a Cancer person or you have major Cancer energy during this summer ingress of Cancer and Jupiter in Cancer, the moon is changing every 2 to 2.5 days. So it's not going to stay the same for Cancer people. It's a little bit of an up and down, depending on where that moon sign hits in the Cancer native's chart, sort of thing. So that moon sign is always changing. Whereas if it were more of a constant, we have Mars is in Virgo now at 2 degrees. Mars went from Leo into Virgo, and that's a big change because Mars in Virgo is tidy and it kind of cleans our energy up, although it makes us want to make things perfect, especially for work. So that Mars in Virgo can be very helpful, or it can be very critical, or interfering. So it depends on how we collectively use the Mars Virgo planet. Because remember, when we're talking about the transits here, I'm not talking about a particular person's chart. We're talking about the cosmic sky. Now, if a baby's born at 10:42 tonight, New York time, they're going to have this chart that I'm reading, which is a pretty cool chart. And the baby would have Scorpio on the midheaven at the top of the chart as well. So that's powerful. But there's a lot of good energy there. Again, there's really no Scorpio happening except the midheaven. Scorpio is also on the 9th house tonight. And then, of course, Pisces, we just have that node, which continues to be retrograde, the node at 22 of Pisces. But, remember a year ago, I talked about the Saturn and Pisces people, the 1994 people that were finishing up, right? And they were finishing up from summer to fall. even into winter. So those 94 people who are turning 31 now, or almost 31, they're done. So now we're more on the 1995 people because we have Saturn in Aries. So all the Saturn and Pisces people, you're basically done. And Saturn will retrograde at some point. It will retrograde. Let's see. I'm not sure when. Let's see here. 22 days. It's going to be in 22 days. But even if it were to go back to 29 of Pisces, all the Saturn Pisces people have already finished their Saturn return because they're almost 31. So it's not going to be anything major. It's just a little residue. So they're basically, so people that have completed their Saturn return, those of you that are 31 or older, now you're really starting to grow up. But the 1995 people who are turning 30 this year, you're right in the thick of it. You're almost done. And then the 1996 people who are turning 29, the next year for you is vital. And it's really vital if you have Cancer, if that 1995 or 96 chart has major Cancer in it for this season. That's really, really, really powerful. And of course, we have the Pluto retrograde at Aquarius. That's going to be there forever. And I mean, really forever. We're talking decades. And then we have a lot of Aries energy. We have that Neptune, we have that Saturn, and we have the part of fortune in Aries, which is, at least for a baby born tonight, that baby would need to be in touch with their own self energy to give them fortune and joy, sort of thing. But there's not a lot of fire, other than this outer planet in Aries. I'm realizing the Aries energy here is at the bottom of the chart. The Leo is on a cusp house, and then the same with Sag, but no major Leo, no major Sag. Of course, Sag is ruled by Jupiter in Cancer, but there is no transiting Sagittarius planets. And then we have the Earth point in Capricorn, which that's just changing tonight. That's in Capricorn, and yeah, so that's very interesting. But really, really powerful, particularly for Cancer people. But again, everyone has Cancer on their chart somewhere. For example, there's someone in the chat, I won't name who you are, but I know that you have Gemini rising. So this Gemini rising person, I don't know the degree off the top of my head, but I think it's in the middle. So the person that has Gemini in the first, they would have Cancer most likely on the second house. So this Jupiter in Cancer is transiting in your first house, which is wonderful. That can expand you in ways that you didn't even think about. Or it could just give you a big chip on your shoulder or a big ego. Bigger isn't always better, and more isn't always better. Jupiter likes bigger and more. So again, it's how you use it. But generally speaking, it's letting you be jovial. A Jupiter transit in the first house, you are feeling jovial. But now it's going to go, give it a few weeks or months, it's going to transit your second house. So for Gemini rising people, which I have some in my family, that Jupiter Cancer transit will eventually make it to your second house, which could bring you money, could bring you literal value and possessions of money, cash sort of thing. But most likely it will just expand your own sense of mine. So it's a my house, it's mine. So whatever you see as yours, this could be an attitude, it could be a way of life, and it will most likely expand that. Now, if it's something negative that you're holding on to, because the second house is the Taurus house, it can be a little rigid. If you're holding on to something that's not serving you, Jupiter may temporarily shine a light on that, expand that, and you may not like that. So that'll be an opportunity that when Jupiter goes into Leo, then it'll move most likely towards your third house. So that's an example of Jupiter Cancer transit for a Gemini rising person. And let's say you have Aries rising for in your chart. If you're an Aries rising person, every house cusp is in the exact order of the 12 signs of the zodiac, because Aries is the first sign. So you would have Aries, Taurus, etc. So most likely that Aries rising person would have Jupiter transiting from their third house into the coming weeks, going into their fourth house, third house of environment, and then transiting in their fourth house of family and roots, which would expand and shine a light on that again. And again, wherever Jupiter is, bigger isn't always better, but sometimes bigger is good. If you need to go a little big because you've been shy or you've been lacking courage, Jupiter will absolutely do that. And every single person on Earth, every single one of us has Cancer on a house cusp, or it could be what's called intercepted, which it's not technically on a house cusp, but it's there. It's in between a house and it's hidden. But that's kind of potent if you can find ways to bring that out. It's just not readily available for the person if they don't have it on a cusp, on a house cusp. But that Jupiter will amplify it, will absolutely amplify it. And let's take another example. Let's say Libra rising. So I'm using the cardinal signs here. So if you're a Libra rising person, you most likely have Aries on the 7th. Then you would have a Cancer midheaven. So at the top of your chart, your 10th house would almost always would be your moon child ruling your 10th house. So you would be creative, maybe even a little dark, and use your moods and your emotions towards your work and career and your public image, even though you're a Libra rising and potentially a different sun sign as well. The Cancer energy would shine on your 10th house. But Jupiter, if you have Cancer on the 10th, Jupiter will be transiting your 9th house of travel, philosophy, higher learning, in-laws, far places that are far, whether it's physically far or in your mind, and it's going to transit from your 9th house, and then it's going to eventually, the Cancer midheaven people, Jupiter's going to touch that. That is sweet. So find out what your Cancer midheaven degree is. Find out when Jupiter's going to hit that. Let's just say it's 5 degrees. That's going to be soon. Jupiter's going to come across. It's going to kiss your 10th house. You're going to be sitting up there. You're going to be expansive. So all of a sudden, your posts or reels or shorts on social media are going to be more expansive, even if that's not your natural MO as a Cancer midheaven, because you're strong, but you kind of hide a little bit. That will help bring you out. That Jupiter and Cancer is going to expand that for you. So a Libra rising person can look forward to Jupiter helping out their public image, career, depending on the aspects, and if there's any planets in there. If there's some kind of affliction in there, or a stellium or something that's like a T-square, then it could stir up some things that are tense. But of course, tension often breeds growth. Things cannot always be easy for us to grow, nor should they always be difficult to grow. And we feel like we want to just like throw in the towel, like Rocky. Like, when the transits are like one more punch and the transits are giving you, and you're like, I'm going to almost throw in the towel. Nope. And I watch a lot of YouTubers. Some are very established, been doing it for 10 years, and others are, kind of newer like me. And it's just funny because so many of these men and women, all ages, they almost all say at some point they were like, screw this. I'm so sick of this. It's, I'm not growing, or this is so frustrating. And they're about to throw in the towel with their YouTube channel, but they didn't. For whatever reason, they talked themselves out of it, hung in there, or their family and friends helped them. So you just got to hang in there. You just got to keep going. And that's really what it's about. And that's what I'm doing. I'm just keep going. I grow very slowly, and I have to think and be more creative in terms of how I market Astroscoop. So I'm going to look to those ways for the summer and fall. But That's really, really interesting. And Jupiter in Cancer is well placed astrologically as well. So it's a nice warm. It can be a really good expansion of warm motherly energy, but not just motherly. This also goes for anyone wanting to get in touch, more in touch with their positive feminine side, but that's also strength and strong, like a goddess, empowered. It's not weak. It's not weak. Again, Cancer, I said at the top of the hour, Cancer is not weak. And anyone that thinks that Cancer is weak, I don't think you should underestimate Cancer. Because obviously, and they can be good emotional fighters, not necessarily physical, but they can fight with you emotionally, and sometimes manipulate as well. So it's good to obviously to be aware of that, and of course for Cancer people. So it's 9 o'clock. Before we go, thank you for any new people that popped in. I appreciate you stopping by. I know this is a long hour to hang in there with me, but I appreciate it. And also, I keep saying it, please give me comments of what you want to see this summer and fall for the live streams, because I'm trying out some different software and some different techniques. So I'm very open. When I practice by myself, I do a lot of different kinds of things, and then something ends up in my video or live here, but I can't, obviously I can't do everything if it's 2 or 3 hours worth, but please let me know. Now, June 25th, next Wednesday, is the new moon in Cancer. This is amazing. So if you want to look at this, you want to erect this chart or go to a website and pull it up. Do June 25th, 2025, 6:32 a.m. approximately, New York Eastern Time. You'll see Cancer rising, which I keep mentioning. Cancer is going to actually be rising Wednesday morning. Jupiter in Cancer at 3, Sun in Cancer at 4, Moon in Cancer at 4. The, what is that, part of fortune? Part of fortune in Cancer at 17, Mercury at 28 of Cancer. Half of those are in the 12th house. The other two are in the first house. And so it's not a complete stellium, but it's a partial stellium with Jupiter, the Sun, and the Moon. And again, those are all going to be ruled by the Moon in Cancer on Wednesday. So Wednesday is really the only day of this summer. It's literally the only day of this whole season where the Cancer energy is at its most poignant and its most powerful. And those of you that have major Cancer, you don't always express it to people, but when you're by yourself and you're talking to yourself or working out your feelings, how much is going on with you underneath that shell. The good, the bad, and the ugly. There's so much going on there. And you have a lot to give as well. Cancer has a heck of a lot to give, a lot of good stuff. But you just got to get to it. You got to get to the good meat. But we're going to have that stellium. This is all early Cancer energy. This is raw Cancer energy. Watch out for all of us. Watch out for fights with people, just unnecessary emotional fights that don't mean anything, that don't matter. It's because both people are just coming from a place of defensiveness, or both people just want to be right. But it's not going to accomplish anything. So some of those battles just need to be squashed. And that's, you have to be really careful with all that Cancer energy. Now, of course, Mars is in Virgo, our collective Mars, how we fight. Mars is in Virgo, and it's early Virgo, so it's mercurial. And, it's more about holding on in terms of your values, how your routine, and kind of what you think is correct and perfect. That's the energy of Mars. But we have a lot of that Taurus. We have the Venus and Uranus, which is nice. A little bit of, we have a point in Capricorn. And then that Pluto, that retrograde Pluto in Aquarius will be in the 7th house. And let's see, Saturn, Neptune, conjunction in the 10th, and then we'll have Pisces at the top of the chart, and we will have Aries and Libra intercepted. So Aries and Libra planets are behind the scenes, all of them, all Aries and Libra planets, no matter what degree, but behind the scenes in the 4th and 10th. They're there, but they're behind the scenes starting this new moon. So it takes a little more effort for those signs to incorporate it with all this Cancer energy. But this is so cardinal. This is such strength. I mean, we have Jupiter 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. We have 8 points on the new moon chart on June 25th that are all in cardinal signs. And what we're really low on is mutable. The mutable really is only Mars in Virgo, and we have the node in Pisces. And then we have Uranus, Venus, and we have Pluto in fixed signs. And of course, we have that cardinal sign, Cancer rising at 17 degrees. Now, it's funny because when I started talking about this for Cancer rising people, I didn't look up the new moon chart. I didn't know Cancer was rising, or I didn't know it would be rising next week. So that is pretty cool. So we have a lot to deal with. Karen says, thanks for sharing about June 25th. Oh, you're welcome. Yeah, it's amazing. And I want to look at, I'll do it for next week, but I want to look at the summer solstice chart from last year and the new moon chart. Now, obviously, a new moon chart, the sun and moon are always conjunct, and that's why it's new moon. But last year, I know the moon was in a different, I think the moon was in a different sign when the summer solstice, the ingress started. So, all right, well, great. I'm glad I didn't go too long. And thank you so much for hanging out with me. And I appreciate the few people that just coming in and out. I know there's some people that like to hear the celebrities. And I'm actually not going to do the celebrities because it was more important to just talk about the Cancer energy in the 2 charts coming up. Tonight's chart, the summer chart, and the new moon in Cancer. But I will do some reels and posts about these, which I do almost every day. So you can look at those. Look at that. Oh, and one little thing. My son, he drew a moon for me. He said, what kind of moon do you want? And I said, I don't know, crescent? He goes, okay. And I said, can you color it in for me? And he walked away and he goes, that's good enough. So he's funny. And of course, my daughter did that last week. She painted that crab. Great info as always. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it. So everyone be safe this week. Oh, don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share. I really appreciate it. And the last note I will make, this hasn't happened in almost 6 months. My #1 country of viewership right now is India. So India, thank you. If anyone from India sees this, or if you know anyone from India, the enormous country, I have close to 50% of my views on the live streams and my videos, especially a lot of my older videos, are coming, half of them are coming from India. That is unbelievable. So I'm amazed at that. That hasn't happened in a long time. Also Pakistan, I'm getting a few views here from Pakistan. And of course, the US is still there, always in the top 5 for views. But thank you so much to some of those other countries, and particularly India. All right, I hope everyone has a great summer. Happy summer solstice. Be safe if you're traveling. And don't forget to tune in, use your gut, use your intuition, use your feelings, all those things. That's what Cancer is. Yes, Cancer is smart. Cancer is practical, but Cancer is the stomach and it's the crab. So do with that good things. All right, thank you so much, and we'll see you next week. Be safe.